Hey guys, I have a new video here for you, and this one's going to be on Rudolf Steiner. Well, a little bit on Rudolf Steiner and a little bit of what we're going through. And it's from his lecture 13, The Fallen Spirit's Influence in the World, which he spoke in Dornach on the 27th of October 1917. Let's hear what he's got to say. He says, I have told you that the spirits of darkness are going to inspire their human hosts, in whom they will be dwelling, to find a vaccine that will drive all inclination towards spirituality out of people's souls when they are still very young. And this will happen in a roundabout way through the living body. Wow! Especially when you watch this video here. 1 second. This has been making the rounds for quite a while, but it's popped up again because it's, seems so timely. And let me know in the comments below, what you think and who you think this could be. But it's only 4 minutes long, so I'll play the whole thing. It's supposedly it's a Pentagon briefing in 2005 on removing the God gene, and they called it Funvax because it was something that was supposed to help fundamentalists become more rational, normal, to eliminate the problem of fundamentalism. So have a listen in.
On the left over here we have individuals who are religious fundamentalists, religious fanatics, and this is the expression, RT-PCR, real-time PCR expression of the VMAT2 gene. Over here we have individuals. So let me complete. So over here we have individuals who are not particularly fundamentalist, not particularly religious, and you can see there's a much reduced expression of this particular gene, the VMAT2 gene. Another evidence that supports our hypothesis for the development of this approach.
What you see here is by spreading this virus, we're going to eliminate individuals from donning on a bomb vest and going into a market and blowing up the market.
So our hypothesis is that these are fanatical people, that they have overexpression of the VMAT2 gene, and that by vaccinating them against this, we'll eliminate this behavior. So we have some very, very remarkable data in this next slide. Here we have two brain scans. These are fMRIs. These are two different individuals with different levels of expression of VMAT2. On top is an individual who's a religious fanatic, an individual, and we've repeated this numerous times, that has high levels of VMAT2. Now, this individual down here who had low levels of the VMAT2 gene, this individual would self-describe as not particularly religious. In each case, these individuals were read a religious text. This individual lit up the right middle frontal gyrus, shown here, and that's a part of the brain that's associated with theory of mind. It's a part of the brain that has to do with intents and beliefs and desires. In marked contrast, here's an individual who would not particularly self-describe as religious, and when they're read a religious text, what you see is that this part of the brain called the anterior insula lights up. This is a part of the brain that's associated with disgust or displeasure on hearing something.
So you're suggesting I take a CT scan with me when I'm evaluating people to determine whether I put a bullet in their head?
So the data that I'm presenting here supports the concept that we're proposing, and I think that we would not propose to do CT scans or fMRIs on individuals out in the hinterlands of Afghanistan. The virus would immunize against this VMAT2 gene, and that would have the effect that you see here, which is it's essentially to turn a fanatic into a normal person. And we think that will have major effects in the Middle East.
How would you suggest that this is going to be dispersed? An aerosol?
Well, so the present plan and the tests that we've done so far have used respiratory viruses, such as flu or rhinoviruses, and we believe that that's a satisfactory way to get the exposure of the largest part of the population. Most of us, of course, have been exposed to both of those viruses, and we're quite confident that this will be a very successful approach.
This is fascinating. What's the name of this proposal?
Yeah, so the name of this project is FunVax, which is the vaccine for religious fundamentalism.
And you have a proposal already?
The proposal has just been submitted, and I think that the data that I have shown you today would support the development of this project, and we think it has great promise. Excuse me, on the left over.
Right. I know. You'll find this video, of course, in the links below. Everything that I'm showing you today the links are going to be in the description box below this video. So it's on Construct, and it says here, thanks to Joey Lombardi, the man responsible for leaking this video, and there's a whole explanation there. But you can also Google FunVax, and you'll see, of course, that it has already been debunked. So there have been people that have debunked it, basically, and I mean, they make a plausible case, so it's worth looking into, worth reading into, and then making up your own mind, right, to see if you want to believe this or not. And why I'm interested in this, I haven't made up my own mind yet either, guys. But why I'm interested in this is the blog that went along with it, with this video that was released, or was it released later, this blog? Yes, in 2011. So apparently this video was taken in 2005. And when the person who leaked it on the internet received it, apparently was in 2011. And they wanted to bring it out in a big way, and the person who brought it out or leaked it is also a filmmaker, but also a microbiologist. And so here on this blog page, he's talking about vaccines laced with birth control drugs in October 2011. He's talking about man-made super flu and how it's being censored, and that they're working on it, and so on and so forth. I mean, I guess in that arena they talk about stuff all the time if it weren't for Rudolf Steiner, but we'll get to that. So this is Bill Gates warning about gene editing, which is what he's here. I don't know if this is Bill Gates. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is BG. But it's, it seems to be, right? But this supposedly is what he, his stance on the 7th of January. This video was posted, Walk It Tech, or however you pronounce that, and his warnings that he issued. Controversial work already being done on babies in China. Oh my gosh, China keeps popping up. Another place keeps popping up, and other names keep popping up as we move through this. So my next slide for you is he takes a completely different stance. If you actually Google it, what's he saying on gene editing? He's actually saying that gene editing and artificial intelligence could save the world. Now, this is 1 year later, February 14th, 2020. And here he's talking about how in vivo gene editing techniques that you can just do a single injection using vectors that target and edit these blood forming cells, which are down in the bone marrow, with very high efficiency and very few off-target edits, he says. Could be a functional cure for HIV patients, he says, as well. So interesting. He's also talking about using AI to look for links between maternal nutrition and infant birth weight. Now, this whole thing, when I think about it, you know, there's this almost obsession with life and creating life, writing into life. It kind of reminds me of something else, especially when it's, you know, on that level. It makes me think of this. Some of you guys may know about this. This is the Lebensborn program. There we go. It's already in there. So Lebensborn, and the Lebensborn was a Nazi breeding program to create the master race. It was an SS-initiated, state-supported, registered association in Nazi Germany with the goal of raising the birth rate of Aryan children of persons classified as racially pure and healthy based on Nazi racial hygiene and health ideology. Okay. Lebensborn provided welfare, and there's this whole ideology that goes in with these guys, like we're seeing it. Provided welfare to its mostly unmarried mothers, encouraged anonymous births by unmarried women at their maternity homes, and mediated adoption of these children by likewise racially pure and healthy parents, particularly SS members and their families. The Cross of Honor of the German Mother was given to the women who bore the most Aryan children. Abortion was legalized by the Nazis for disabled children, but strictly punished otherwise. So, yeah. Yeah, so let's, this is a birth house here. And the christening of a Lebensborn child. Kidnapping of Polish children. Oh, they like to do that a lot because, see, they didn't like the Poles and they thought that the Poles were underneath them racially, but they had the looks. The Poles had the looks. They had the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, so they'd kidnap the children and re-educate them as German and adopt them out to German families. So this whole, you know, genetic stuff, it's like it carries a signature for me, which, as I grew up in Germany, yeah, these are the pictures I remember out of history class where they talked about this. And we learned a lot about this. And the Lebensborn children. And they were obsessed with genetics. The Nazis were obsessed with genetics. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with these guys as well. They're obsessed with genetics. And there's a kind of atheism, materialism that goes in with that, right? Because they don't feel that there's any need to, you know, stop. Any need to just let life do its thing. Any you know, faith in anything. It feels very empty, dark, and we'll get to that dark place in a second. So they're thinking like everything has to stay the same somehow. I don't know. But anyways, moving on. We're going to get through this stuff. I want to move a little quicker. Dean Hamer is the one who actually, he did write a book. Dean Hamer is a American geneticist, author, and filmmaker. He's known for his research on the role of genetics and sexual orientation in human behavior, specifically homosexuality. He wrote a lot about that as well. Contributions to biotechnology, HIV/AIDS prevention. They're always working in the same things. They're working in HIV. They're working in genetics. It always comes up the same thing. You'll see. Same names, same places, same things. And popular books and documentaries on a wide range of topics. So he got his PhD from Harvard Medical School. Now this is interesting. Why is that interesting? Because there's a lot going on around genetics and evolutionary sciences at Harvard. And we'll see that in a second right over here. Here's his book, by the way, The God Gene. And that came out 2005, the same time that supposedly this video was made, right? So you can have a look at that too if you like. Now, why did Harvard pop up for me? Well, remember, Harvard popped up, you know, not just because they had to give the grant money back because they're one of the most well-funded universities in the US, and not because of Charles Lieber, who was arrested earlier this year on corruption charges. But also his name popped up again. Jeffrey Epstein's Harvard ties were extensive, new report reveals. It says here, Jeffrey Epstein's millions earned him special treatment at Harvard. He had a personal office among university researchers, a dedicated phone line, an unusual visiting fellowship position, and the backing of several high-level faculty who urged administrators to take the financier's money despite his record as a registered sex offender. So even after he was registered as a criminal, they took his money. In a report released on Friday, Harvard outlined these extensive ties with the notorious Epstein, detailing a relationship that spanned more than 25 years. Wow. So, according to a months-long investigation by Harvard's general counsel and an outside law firm, the university received $9.2 million from Epstein between 1998 and 2007. After his 2008 sex conviction, Harvard's then president, Drew Faust, barred any more donations from the financier. Still, Faust's decision wasn't clear to some faculty and fundraisers within Harvard who continued to lobby administrators over the years to take money from Epstein. Individual professors continued their relationship, meeting with him, traveling to his homes, and in some cases benefiting from the financier's connections to other wealthy donors who could support academic research. Wow. So, let's see. On Friday, Harvard also announced that it had placed Martin Novak, and we're going to look at him in a second, a biology and math professor and director of Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics. It's always the same thing, I'm telling you guys. And remember, Epstein was the guy that wanted to impregnate all these women and spread his DNA. What are they planning? Like, what kind of Rosemary's Baby are they trying to bring out? You know, like, who's coming through here? So Novak did not respond to requests for comment. In the program's building, space was scarce, but Office 610 was known as Jeffrey's office, and Epstein decorated it with his own rug and photographs. He even had his own Harvard phone line, according to the report. He visited there 40 times after he was released from jail in 2010, up until 2018, routinely with young women who acted as his assistants. So on and on and on it goes. You guys can read that report. Again, all the links are going to be in the description box below this video. And so Harvard reveals extensive Jeffrey Epstein's visits and gifts. Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein introduced Wall Street financier Leon Black to a pair of Harvard University professors. And this pair of Harvard University professors is going to be really interesting, whose work Black then supported with millions of dollars. The finding reflects the many interactions Epstein enjoyed with a who's who of academic and corporate figures. In addition to Black, I'm telling you guys, the same names keep popping up over and over and over again. The founder and chief executive officer of Apollo Global Management Incorporated, one of the world's largest private equity funds that circle included former U.S. President Bill Clinton and the retail billionaire Leslie Wexner. Pretty much the same deal as the previous article. And it goes on to say that in the course of his association with Harvard, he acquainted the Apollo CEO with the genetic and evolutionary research of the two professors who found in Black a welcome source of funds after Harvard barred any further donations from Epstein the university said. 9.1 million. Epstein's donations have also roiled the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where Joy Ito, who headed MIT's storied media lab, was revealed last year to have solicited donations from Epstein after the conviction, despite warnings from the faculty to shun him. Ito stepped down in September. One of the two Harvard professors, so one of them was Martin Novak, we're going to have a look at them. The second one is George Church, who is a geneticist and leader of the Personal Genome Project that sequences people's DNA for public use and research, and has started numerous genetics companies. Epstein was fascinated by this area and regularly interacted with an array of its top academics. His $6.5 million gift to the university in 2003 established Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics, led by Professor Martin Novak, a scholar of mathematics and biology. Novak continued to push for donations either from Epstein or with his help, even after Drew Faust, then Harvard's president, said the school would no longer take his money. It said Novak let Epstein use the program's website to promote himself. Harvard said it has put Novak now on administrative leave, of course. So Black donated personally and through his foundation $9 million to support the work of the two professors between 2010 and 2015. The donations, $7 million to Novak and $2 million to Church, were results of introductions made by Epstein. And over the past decade, Black has donated about $20 million to Harvard in support of charitable projects and causes. So who is Black? One second here. Let's have a look at this Wall Street financier Black. Wall Street, Leon Black. Forbes. Okay, let's just run with the first one. Leon Black is the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of private equity behemoth Apollo Global Management, so on and so forth. Okay, billionaires 2020, private equity, self-made. Where's the hook? Education. Master of Business Admin at Harvard University. It just, that place. Okay. Of course, philanthropy. Inside philanthropy, Leon and Deborah Black, Apollo Global Management. Oh my gosh, go away. They want me to pay to see that. Okay, that's a no-go. Alrighty, so let's get back to this here. So do you see like all these red threads kind of coming together? Who's Martin Novak? So he's a professor of biology and mathematics at Harvard. We got that. So I guess let's move on. This is his website, and I haven't really looked through it, to be honest with you. I just pulled it up for this video, but what I did notice was this here right on his front page. Sounds like a nice guy. Mathematician and biologist Martin Novak studies how the competition of natural selection can lead to cooperative behavior and believes nice guys finish first. Gosh. So let's see. He's talking about community. Research reveals that cooperation is the best chance to spread in a community if there are many possibilities for productive interactions, if there are repeated encounters between the same people, and if people know each other and value their reputation. So he's talking about an old boys club. He's talking about a network, right? And I scratch your back and you scratch mine, and indirect reciprocity, which means I scratch your back and I believe that somebody else will scratch mine down the road. This is what he went to Harvard for? Oh my gosh. Group selection occurs if there is competition between groups. The members of a group help each other. Kin selection is based on interactions between close genetic relatives. Okay. Reputation, reward better than punishment for promoting eusociality. Oh, wow. Wow, wow. Eusociality is a cooperative living arrangement. Look at how they sneak that little pill in, you know, after all this blah, blah, blah. If you actually make it to the bottom, is a cooperative living arrangement in which members of a species give up their own chances of reproduction to help raise the offspring of others. Traditionally, researchers have thought that eusociality arises through, oh my gosh, who's thinking Handmaid's Tale? Who's thinking Handmaid's Tale right here? Traditionally, researchers have thought that eusociality arises through kin selection theory. Members of the group who give up their own reproduction to help others aren't really altruistic by helping their kin who are genetically similar. They are actually favoring their own genes indirectly. With evolutionary biologist E.O. Wilson and mathematical biologist Corinna Tarnita, Martin has come up with an alternative explanation. They argue that natural selection alone can explain the evolution of eusocial behavior through a number of steps. If a species follows these steps, its members stick together and develop the traits and genes that cause them to cooperate. Eusociality is the result. A cooperative living arrangement in which members of species give up their own chances of reproduction to help raise the offspring of others. Wow, I don't even know what to say. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's keep moving. Don't want to get... So this is the program for evolutionary dynamics. It's the study of the fundamental mathematical principles that guide evolution. The program for evolutionary dynamics at Harvard University was established in 2003 and is dedicated to research and teaching. Oh my gosh. Okay, you know, I don't know, right? Before we judge, although, you know, I've already judged because Epstein's in it. It's already done. But actually, before we judge, we'd have to, without getting our brains infected and brainwashed, we'd have to stay neutral, but read into the topic a little bit more, right? Because the way it's being presented right here, I'm automatically going, no. But in actuality, we do need more information about what exactly is meant, you know, so I'll leave it with you guys. And we'll just keep this moving here. So about the director, this is the Harvard page. So let's see. He works on the mathematical description of evolutionary processes, including the evolution of cooperation in human language. Doesn't that sound nice? Until you hit that eusociality bit. As well as the dynamics of virus infections in... What? What? as well as the dynamics of virus infections and human cancer. Okay. Didn't I tell you the same thing keeps popping up? Here I see HIV disease progression, HIV infection, virulence under superinfection and co-infection, chromosomal instability in human cancer, the accumulation of drivers and passengers in cancer progression, the mechanisms for the evolution of genetic redundancy. Wow. What can I say? It's always the same players, man. An Austrian by birth, he studied biochemistry and mathematics at the University of Vienna and made his way by way of Oxford University to Harvard. Okay. Alrighty, let's move on. So this dude here, why I stumbled across the whole Harvard thing, Human Internet on Twitter. You want to follow this profile because this person is posting stuff you want to know about. You don't want to know about it, but you don't want to not know about it. They're posting like these, for example, this patent that AT&T filed for a biological, let me just open it up here, 1 second. biological router. Routing policies for biological hosts. Well, who's the biological hosts? Well, that's us. That is us. So it has to do with physical realization, in other words, hardware implementation of neural networks, neurons or parts of neurons using biological neurons. Example, biological neurons connected to an integrated circuit. To translate that for you, that's a chip, okay? That's a chip. A chip in your brain connected to the internet. So, oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I have to laugh. You've got to laugh because this is just straight up evil genius stuff out of Bond, James Bond. So he's been posting about this, and not only this, but other stuff that's been going on as well. So each different biological region may thus be addressable to send, receive communications to and from the communications network. When the communications device receives the biological signal may again be identified with its particular biological region within the body area network. Once the biological region is known, the interface application consults the routing table for the corresponding biological address assigned to the biological region, so on and so forth. Like, it gets pretty techy, but he breaks it down nicely and explains it to you crudely. In more simple terms, one person's brain may control another person's body and vice versa. Wake up. So this is, you know, it has been filed. There are other things he posts as well. I don't want to get it. Huawei and the human bond communication. So transmission and reception of all five senses digitally in the information domain, just like any other existing data being exchanged today. So what you feel, see, smell, touch can be uploaded, right? And then passed on to others. So he keeps really up to date on the cutting edge, or she, and I'm guessing is somehow in this area because they really know where to look and where to find it. So spybernetics, nanotech, all of that. And I stumbled across why Harvard, because a lot of what this person posts is connected to research that they're conducting at Harvard. And so this was also where I found this. One second. Do 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 do. Boom ba boom ba boom boom boom. Come on, I know you're here. I know you're here. There we go. So Center for Genomically Engineered Organs. And why am I pulling this up? Remember that second person that they were dealing with? George Church. This is him. George Church is the Robert Winthrop Professor of Genetics at Harvard Medical School, Professor of Health Sciences and Technology. So Epstein was funding this George Church, and he was funding this Martin Novak person here. Where are you? This one, right? And these two were working at Harvard on genetics and evolutionary sciences. Okay? Genomically engineered organs. So here we have the genetic barcoding of a whole mouse. Okay, I'll keep moving because, you know, it's so much. It is so much, you guys. It is absolutely so much. And here he is, yeah, George M. Church. So you want to have to look into that. And this article talks about the end of the Harvard century. It describes how close Harvard is with China as well, and how even Chinese dissidents that suffered persecution in China and then went to Harvard to study weren't allowed to speak out about what they'd experienced in China, and because it could taint the connection, the affairs of Harvard with China. It could be embarrassing to the university. So here we have gene editing inside the body using CRISPR. Now this is only 5 minutes, so I'll just play it for you.
What you're seeing here is a key moment for the gene editing tool CRISPR-Cas9. That's because the doctors are injecting a patient with an experimental drug that will edit their DNA inside their body. CRISPR-Cas9 holds a lot of promise, but up till now, all the treatments in human clinical trials have been ex vivo. They have relied on taking cells out of the body in order to edit them. Like in a treatment for sickle cell anemia, researchers removed cells from the bone marrow of a young woman in Mississippi, modified them to turn on the production of fetal hemoglobin, and then infused the cells back in. But for many inherited diseases, like brain, muscle, or kidney disease, you just don't have cells that you can take out and put back in, which is why the first in vivo trial, called Brilliance, is so important. So let's take a look at how the in vivo gene editing drug works. CRISPR-Cas9 technology is adapted from bacteria and archaea, specifically from a defense system used to detect and destroy phages. And it's really appealing to researchers because it's cheap, precise, and highly adaptable. It's also elegant.
Its basic principles are fairly straightforward, although there are many modifications of this and many layers of additional technologies now being deployed. But at its core, it's a combination of a Cas9 enzyme, which is really good at cutting DNA, and a guide RNA, which directs the Cas9 enzyme to a specific location in the genome.
This guide RNA is designed to be unique to each application. It contains a 20 base pair sequence called a spacer region that's designed to be a homologous base pair match to the cell's DNA. As this whole complex bounces around the cell, the Cas9 attaches to the cell's double helix at short sequences called PAM. The specific PAM sequence depends on the Cas enzyme being used. Each time, this unwinds the double helix just a little bit, allowing the guide RNA to check if there's a match. If not, the complex moves off. But if those base pairs do match, the guide RNA will continue to anneal to the target DNA. Once the Cas9 detects that every base pair of the spacer region is a match to the cell's DNA, it cleaves the double helix. And this by itself can be enough to knock out the gene. Scientists can also provide a repair template to the cell. This is the basic way the technology works, but CRISPR-Cas9 systems are being rapidly developed, so it can also do lots more. Now let's take a look at a CRISPR-Cas9 treatment in practice. The in vivo trial I mentioned earlier is testing a drug for Leber congenital amaurosis type 10, a disease that affects photoreceptor cells in the retina and causes severe early onset vision loss. To get the drug into the eye, the doctors performed a subretinal injection.
The surgeon makes 3 tiny incisions in the eye so they can put instruments inside the eye to remove the vitreous gel, which is needed so that the very fine cannula that's used to make the subretinal injection can be passed across the eye, placed very delicately under the retina to inject this small amount of gene editing drug.
That drug contains an adeno-associated virus vector. The virus is the delivery system for CRISPR-Cas9. So the researchers put the sequence encoding the Cas9 protein and 2 guide RNAs inside the virus, and the virus carries it like cargo to the cells. The target is a mutation in photoreceptor cells, in the CEP290 gene.
So the most common mutation in the CEP290 gene that's associated with severe early onset vision loss is an intronic mutation that results in the inclusion of a cryptic exon, an abnormal exon in the gene, so the gene doesn't function.
Introns are the non-coding parts of sequences that get removed during RNA splicing. Exons get left in. And that one wrong letter means that not all of the intron gets removed.
So it's a great target for an early CRISPR therapeutic because all we need to do is cut out mutation in the intron.
And that, the researchers hope, will restore gene function to the cells. They're looking to enroll 18 patients, with results starting to trickle in 2021. But while they're going to be paying close attention to the efficacy of the medicine, the primary outcome is safety. And a lot of uncertainty still remains about CRISPR-Cas systems more generally. But one thing is clear. we are finally at a point where the promise of CRISPR-Cas9 is beginning to be tested out in the real world. There's a lot we didn't cover in this video. To learn more, read the JAMA Medical News article about the first CRISPR clinical trials. The link is in the description. And subscribe to this channel for more JAMA Network videos.
Right, so they're splicing genes and replacing it. So remember that first video, right? The FunVax video that we saw? Where they're talking about exactly that, isolating the God gene and then splicing it and replacing it. So let's move along. Oh, this you want to check out, Gerard Verschuren. He's a scientist, writer, speaker, consultant, specialized in human genetics, earned a doctorate in philosophy of science, and he has a video here that you really want to watch. And is religion in our genes? The description will be in the link will be in the description box below this video, of course, right? Again, these debunkers. And remember that when you're reading either information, that a lot of disinformation is flying around, right? Disinformation, we know, has been used to control the narrative, so be mindful of that, okay? And let's see. Now on to Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner is, for those of you that don't know, he is also the founder of the Waldorf schools that some of you might have heard of. If not, I can't get into it in this video. You'll have to research that, but it's one of the best schools. So Rudolf Steiner was an Austrian philosopher, social reformer, architect, esotericist, and claimed clairvoyant. He gained initial recognition at the end of the 19th century as a literary critic and published philosophical works, including the philosophy of freedom. He also founded an esoteric spiritual movement called Anthroposophy, with roots in German idealist philosophy and Theosophy. Other influences include Goethean science, or Goethean science, and Rosicrucianism. He attempted to find the synthesis between science and spirituality. He called it spiritual science, and sought to apply the clarity of thinking characteristic of Western philosophy to spiritual questions, differentiating this approach from what he considered to be vaguer approaches to mysticism. He also worked in architecture, drama, artistic media, the building of the Goetheanum, a central center to house all the arts. Waldorf education, biodynamic agriculture, anthroposophical medicine. And he was always about being very close to life and to God and to spirit, and very interesting writings. He was a prolific writer and lecturer, so there's a lot of material to work through, but he writes a lot about the spiritual realms, the spiritual worlds, and his belief that these realms and these worlds have an influence on us. And he was very close as well to Annie Besant and the Theosophical Society, which was founded by Madame Helena Blavatsky, for those of you that are aware of who that is. And he only left because he wasn't in agreement that Jiddu Krishnamurti was the vehicle of, was supposedly, according to the Theosophical Society, was being groomed to be the vehicle of a new Maitreya or world teacher. And so it's really interesting. I don't want to drift off too much into Jiddu's story, but you want to research that, how he became the great teacher that he was and what his background is. It's very interesting. Okay, so he also, back to Steiner, he lived in Germany, but he also moved to Switzerland because he was attacked by the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis, after the First World War. There was no way he could stay in Germany, so he left. And he conducted a lot of spiritual research and so on and so forth. Moving along, so this is the Rosicrucian order, the Rosicrucian society, which also shaped him. I also studied, was enrolled in courses. They do have courses that you can enroll in. And they're somewhat like the Freemasons, a little bit, maybe, nah, maybe not. But they do have their hidden degrees as well. So, you know, it's a community of mystics who study and practice the metaphysical laws governing the universe, founded in 1915 by Spencer Lewis. It's the largest international organization dedicated to perpetuating the ancient Rosicrucians tradition. So it's a great place to start learning the fundamentals and the basics, right? The mysteries of birth and death, the illusory nature of time and space, awakening of the psychic consciousness, mystical power of vowel sounds and mantras, development of the intuition, thoughts on health, psychology, mysticism, spiritual alchemy, the whole thing. So it's a great place to start. Check it out. And they were also influenced by the Theosophical Society, which of course still exists. They have a phenomenal YouTube channel with lots of interesting content. You want to check that out. And here we have the Theosophy Wiki, which you also want to read through. It's just too much for me to get into in this video because, you know, this is such a deep topic. We can spin off endlessly. But it's important information to understand the whole, you know, all the influences that were going in on this, right? So, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, of course, the famous German writer, poet, but also he was also what you would call a doctor, possibly. He wrote on anatomy, botany, color. He was an observer, I'd say. A very keen observer. And here we have why are both Jesus and Satan referred to as the morning star? Well, part of the beliefs, right, of Rudolf Steiner was that there were two main forces in the universe, so the Ahrimanic force and the Luciferian force, and in between stood humanity. And humanity was the balancing factor, the unifying factor. The Ahrimanic force would be the force that contracts the universe, that we would see as limiting, as crushing, as the dark side, and the Luciferian was the morning star. And so there have been like slight little places in the Bible, I don't know if it was missed during the big Bible edit back then or if it was left in there on purpose, but where both Jesus and Lucifer were described as the morning star. Jesus calls himself the morning star in Revelation 22:16. where he says, oh, I didn't even have to click on it, sorry. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. So, people, I mean, there are a lot of people that, you know, Luciferianism is something that you want to also learn about, right? You don't have to follow it just because you learn about it. And, but it's an interesting different way of seeing Lucifer for sure as the light bringer. And I have my beliefs and whatever's whatever, but I do believe that information is power, knowledge is power, so don't hesitate. Anthroposophy is a philosophy founded in the early 20th century by the esotericist Rudolf Steiner and has its roots in German idealist and mystical philosophies. And anthroposophy's supporters include a lot of people. A lot of people. So, yeah, another thing to read up on, exactly what he was thinking about. And what do I have here? The Waldorf School, exactly, and the cultivation of people. So he very much was, but this is a completely different approach, right, to forming the mind or forming life. A much more holistic approach of working with life, co-creating with life, going with life. And you can also see that in the way they educated their children, or he advocated for children to be educated not against their leanings, not against their natural inclinations, but to flow with their natural inclinations and give them time to develop it on their own. So he was very much a lover of life and flowing with life, right? And these guys that we're talking about are manipulators and controllers of life, and he talks about that a little bit. So I'll skip that. But here we have the knowledge of the higher worlds, and he wrote extensively about the worlds, the various dimensions, the worlds of spirit. And in this book, which you also want to read, it's for free, he also has exercises that teach you how to gain access to those higher worlds. And these exercises, they do take a while. They should be strictly observed. They do take self-discipline, and they're simple, right? But it's the consistency and the discipline and the continued application of them, and you will see changes. So, but he explains a lot about the other worlds again as well. It is called Knowledge of the Higher Worlds, and how is knowledge of the higher worlds attained? And this is what I want to get to, though. The fall of the spirits of darkness. And he wrote this and held these lectures in the fall of 1917. Now, remember 1917, they were in the middle of the First World War, right? And so he talks about the driving forces behind Europe's war. And let's just click on that, because he does have something interesting which applies to our times today as well in this lecture. And here he says, humanity has made great play of its intellectual progress and scientific achievements in the last few centuries, and has been particularly insistent on this at the turn of the 19th century to the 20th. Yet strangely enough, the unconscious and instinctive life was never more to the fore than it is at this time. Up to the present time, this instinctive and unconscious element has increasingly taken hold of the human race. Failure to see the spiritual reality and take account of the element of the spirit is ultimately the cause of this terrible world war. Nor can it be said that through these years which have turned into centuries for anyone who is awake in them, as I have said, humanity has learned an adequate lesson from the terrible events around us. Sadly, it has to be said that the opposite is the case. Sounds like today, I think. Sounds like today, same thing here. If the people insist that this war is just like the wars of the past, and that we'll be making peace just as peace has been made before, and I mean, look at our society, we want to go back to the way it was before this whole COVID, let them talk. There are the people who love Maya, and who do not distinguish between truth and deception. Let them make what may seem like peace. Order will only arise from the chaos that fills the world today, when insight based on the science of the spirit dawns in human minds. You may feel in your hearts that it will be a long time before such order comes. You may think it will be a long time before people are prepared to let the dawn of such a science arise, and you will be right. You have to accept that it will be a long time before order arises from the chaos, for it will not come until human hearts understand the realm of the spirit. Order can only come when it is understood how this chaos has arisen. Chaos has arisen because the reality is considered in an unspiritual way, and the world of the spirit cannot be ignored with impunity. So it is really, he writes, it's deep, and it's a lot, and it takes a little bit of effort, but it is so worth it, you guys, to dive through his lectures and read about what he writes about the spiritual world and how it ties into our world and how it influences our world. And you know, yeah, so we'll go back here. So he goes through in this series of lectures how humanity's struggle for morality, the quest for his perfect social order, and efforts to create a perfect society based on non-spiritual impulses cannot succeed, yet a true spiritual scientific viewpoint will not find easy acceptance either. And it's true. Like, imagine a world where everybody understood the spiritual laws and understood the workings of the spiritual world upon us. Wouldn't that be amazing? Humanity must accept that destructive spiritual beings who previously held a rightful place have entered into everyday life, bringing disruption and division. And if you look at, because he talks about a spiritual war happening along our timeline between roughly 1845 and 1879. 1879 was when, or somewhere around there, was when Archangel Michael defeated the forces of dark, defeated the Aramanic forces. That's what he says. And they fell to earth. Now, what's interesting is around that time, if you go and do the research, look what happened to the earth around that time. The Industrial Revolution and the rise of industry, the rise of the machines, so to speak, and also a spike in human population growth. All of a sudden, a lot of knowledge came to the earth. We've advanced in 100 years in forms that the previous people could not even begin to think. Before that, humanity was kind of like, meandering along, learning little things, changing slowly, mostly changing fashions, but after the Industrial Revolution around late 1800s, everything changed. We advanced so rapidly as have never in human history before. And we grew, we exploded people-wise. And so it's really interesting to look, like some things sound way out there until you start looking what actually happened, what manifested. So here we have the so on and so forth. He moves through it. So let me see, the battle between Michael and the dragon, that's where he talks about that. Now influence human beings, especially through materialistic thinking. The influence of the backward angels make themselves at home in human heads, but can find no place in heads filled with true spiritual wisdom. This is why it's so important to do daily spiritual practice. That's your best protection against negative thoughts, negative feelings, and so on and so forth. Recognizing the inner human being. And the spirits of light and the spirits of darkness. He talks about hereditary blood bonds and the spirits of darkness, the urge for independence. So before this fall, the spirits of light were the ones that promoted staying in family structures, encouraged this continuity. After the fall, it switched. And it was the spirits of darkness that encouraged the continuity and the family structures. And the spirits of light were encouraging independence, and still are to this day. So spirits of darkness brought in this experienced heavy karma. That's basically what he's saying. The fallen spirits' influence in the world into the future. If humanity becomes fully conscious of spiritual realities, especially the influence of the spirits of darkness, then right attitudes and activities will manifest. So let's have a look. This is the lecture that I wanted to show you guys, is the fallen spirits' influence in the world. And so he spoke this in Dornach on the evening of the 27th of October 1917, where he's talking about the mycalic impulses, right? And that were cast down from the spiritual realm into the human realms. Present day events can only be understood if one turns the inner eye to the spiritual powers which are now moving among us. And I believe, guys, that it's not just then that he's talking about, but he's talking about our days today as well, right? So I'll scroll forward because it's a lot. But he talks about they sought to get possession. He's talking about the dark spirits of an ancient inheritance of humanity. This was something we referred to yesterday. Through millennia, the progressive spirits of light guided humanity by means of blood bonds. They brought people together in families, tribes, nations, and races, uniting those who belong together on the basis of truly ancient human and world karma. With their feeling for these blood bonds, people then also had a feeling for missions which went a very long way back in the world. Missions designed to make the blood bonds, which of course came from the earth, part of the general human karma. If one turns one's attention to the spiritual world during the 1820s and 30s, when the souls which were later to enter into human bodies were still in that world, one finds that the souls which were about to descend had certain impulses which, among other things, were due to the fact that for millennia they had been bound to particular families, tribes, nations, and races each time they were on Earth. And so what he's saying is that people would always reincarnate into the same family, into the same race, into the same tribe, into the same nation. And this is also why growth and development was so slow, but it was steady. From the 1840s onwards, however, there was a big shift. And these souls were meant to make the decision to enter into particular bodies. So that's when it started, that before birth, we decided where we were going. It wasn't decided for us anymore. For the spirits of light who sent their impulses into human souls were, of course, guiding human evolution according to the old blood bonds. And so the human souls in the spiritual worlds had certain impulses to follow the ancient human karma and entering into bodies which were to be the population in the second half of the 19th and the early 20th century. The spirits of darkness wanted to gain control over this. They wanted to drive the impulses of the spirits of light from those human souls and bring in their own impulses. If the spirits of darkness had won the battle in 1879, the relationship between human bodies and souls would have been utterly different from what it actually has become. So above all else, it says, the spirits of darkness wanted to prevent spiritual experiences, living experience of the spirit, from coming down into human souls. And this was bound to come about gradually after their fall in 1879. That's what we have. Nowadays, people having difficulty connecting to spirit, connecting to life, connecting to God. So then we have... he goes on to explain, but I'll get to the point. The spirits of darkness are bringing confusion into the rightful elements which are now spreading on earth, and need to spread in such a way that the spirits of light can be active within them. They will seek to push these in the wrong direction. I have already spoken of one such wrong direction, which is about as paradoxical as is possible. And now listen, I have pointed out that while human bodies will develop in such a way that certain spiritualities can find room in them, the materialistic bent, which will spread more and more, so those that are materialistic, that don't believe in anything, that don't have any experience of spirit, and BG has said that he doesn't know about souls and human souls and spirit, and if that exists. He doesn't know. He can't agree with that. So the materialistic bent, or those that are materialistic, which will spread more and more under the guidance of the spirits of darkness, will work against this, against the spirits of the light that are, developing in such a way that certain spiritualities can find room in them. So they'll be working against this and combat it by physical means. I have told you that the spirits of darkness are going to inspire their human hosts, in whom they will be dwelling, to find a vaccine that will drive all inclination towards spirituality out of people's souls when they are still very young, and this will happen in a roundabout way through the living body. Today, bodies are vaccinated against one thing and another. In future, children will be vaccinated with a substance which it will certainly be possible to produce, and this will make them immune so that they do not develop foolish inclinations connected with spiritual life. Foolish here, of course, in the eyes of materialists. And, of course, what do materialists think about people that believe in something, or believe in something higher, more spiritual? They think we're foolish, right? And they think it's a foolish pastime. We're already talking about essential workers, They're already dictating what is essential and what's not foolish, what's needed, what's necessary, and it's all very materialistic. Churches had to close, but we can go to Walmart, right? And so it's here, guys. It's here. And this is from 1917. This is online since 2008. Okay? And here we are, 1917. This is 103 years later. I hope I, made something clear in this hour, and that this is very real. This is very, very, very real. And spirit is real. Our spirituality is real. Our value is real. We are so valuable that these spirits of darkness will do anything to stop us from fully incarnating. It is more important than ever before to stick together, to have a daily spiritual practice, to continue to connect to the spirits of the light, because yes, the win has happened, but we have to manifest that win. And it's so important that we continue. So this is absolutely real. So now we know that he said this. We know it's been debunked, right? This video, supposedly. And the debunkers did a good job. We know there's disinformation. We know that they can splice genomes. We know that this person thinks he found the God gene. We know they've been working on genetics and natural selection, and they've been continuing the eugenics ideas which they had turn of the century, right? Which they tried once before in Nazi Germany. We know that this is a thing, eusociality, where members of a species give up their own chances of reproduction. We know that they're trying to genetically engineer us. We know that they're trying to, they've already filed here routing policies for biological hosts, and there's another one that Microsoft filed. Where did it go? I just closed it by accident, you guys, I think. No? Human internet. There we go. It keeps going away. Oh no, I'm sorry. So we know that they can barcode individual cells, things of that nature, right? So this is real. This is happening, and for people to continue to wish it away, or say we don't need to do anything. We need to do something. We need to get this information to as many people as possible, to your communities, to the people that you know, because the more in consciousness that we see through the machinations, the more the collective sees through this, the more we're able to come together, the more we're able to have ideas, the more we're able to combat it. And right now, nobody really sees through it except for a few of us, right? And oh my gosh, there's I'm just looking at a chip here. I'm sorry. So it's really important that we get together on this, that we share this information, and it's really important that you do your research and that you dig into it, and that you don't just dismiss it because it's too hard to accept, because they're not doing this. They're not doing this. They're following their plans. They're following the spirits that are whispering to them what to do. And we need to follow the spirits that are whispering to us as well, the good spirits, and telling us what to do. Okay?